Hi everybody, welcome to Philosophy 2400, an introduction to ethics. If you are new to Walters State, welcome to your first semester, fall 2016. And if you're a returning student, welcome back. My name is Michael Funk. You can call me Dr. Funk, Mr. Funk, Hey Funk. If you're over 30, you can call me Michael. I want to be that teacher that says, hey, call me by my first name, but it just doesn't feel right for me unless the person's close to my age. So Mr. Funk, Dr. Funk, Hey Funk, any of that is fine. I'll be your instructor for this online section of Introduction to Ethics. And this video is just an introduction to the class. I'm going to walk you through the steps that we'll take each week, the way the class will generally operate. I'll give you a brief discussion through the tutorial. I'll walk you through a tutorial of the class. I'll walk you through the syllabus, and I will take you through briefly the process on eLearn, and we'll do that all in this video. Every week you'll have at least one video like this one that will explore some area of the class. The book, if you haven't found it yet, we have two of them. It's a companion set. The first book we'll read is The Fundamentals of Ethics. It's Ruff Schaefer-Landau's primer on the basics of moral philosophy. The second book you'll also need is called The Ethical Life, and it looks very similar. It's got, instead of a gold border and a black center, it's got a gold center and a black border, but otherwise they look very, very similar. They go together. We'll read, for about the first month of the class, we'll be reading this book, The Fundamentals of Ethics, and that'll be a section on moral theory. So we'll start off thinking about moral theory, answering questions like, is there right or wrong action? How do we decide what counts as right or wrong action? Are actions justified based on their consequences? That is, do the ends justify the means? Or can we justify actions based on individual rights or responsibilities or human character? Those are some of the issues we'll start off with in the class. We'll do that for about the first month. Then we'll switch to the second book, The Ethical Life, which is a much more practical section of the class, and we'll do that for about the second 2/3 of the class. And in that section, we'll talk about some specific moral issues and the way the moral theory from the first third of the class illuminates our answers to those practical moral questions. So more about that in a moment. For now, what I'd like to start you out with is I'd like to walk through very briefly the weekly activity. So every week in this class is basically the same. That is, there'll be the same activities each week. You'll access the weekly folder in eLearn, so you'll have a module for each week in eLearn. You've probably seen those already. So this file is in the week 1 folder. You'll watch the video. You'll read the associated sections of the text, and then there will be either a quiz to take, or there'll be a discussion board, or a couple of times across the semester there'll be an essay to complete. And you'll do each week basically the same thing. Open that folder, watch the video, do the reading, and then contribute to the discussion board or take the quiz. And it's always good, if you have any questions, to let me know. I'm super available. So I'll give you a brief on on how to get a hold of me. The best way to get a hold of me is email. And the best email address to find me at is michael.funk@ws.edu. So it's pretty straightforward. It's my name, michael.funk@ws.edu. Of course, my middle name's not Dodd, it's Brian. But for our purposes, michael.funk@ws.edu. You can also email me through eLearn. So that is, you can log into eLearn and email me through this class webpage. I don't check eLearn every day. I check eLearn every other day at most. So at worst, it'll be 48 hours before I get back to you if you email me through eLearn. If you want to get a hold of me quicker than that, I check this michael.funk@ws.edu email every 4 hours or so typically. So it's just an easier, faster way to get a hold of me. You can also, of course, use the link in eLearn if it's easier for you. Or if you want to get a hold of me in a quicker fashion, you'd like to talk to me sooner, or you just want to have a live conversation, you're welcome to stop by my office hours at the Morristown campus. I'm in Humanities 109A. It's in the Humanities building on the music hallway. I'm usually there between about 8 o'clock in the morning until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If you want to drop by, it's best really to shoot me an email first so that you can be sure that I'm there. I have meetings sometimes. I have department head meetings. I have board meetings. I'm inundated with meetings. I've also, occasionally I eat, so I have to go get lunch and things like that. So if you just swing by my office between 8 and 3, you have probably a 50-50 shot of catching me there. But if you send me an email first, we can set up a time. I'll definitely be there, and that's a great way to meet face to face. I really enjoy putting a face with the names on these online classes. It makes the experience better for me and probably for you as well. Plus, there's something nice about that kind of personal contact. You're also free to call me. My cell phone number is here on the screen. It's also in the syllabus, which I'll show you in a minute. The cell phone number, feel free to call it anytime between, say, 8 o'clock in the morning and 8, maybe 9 o'clock at night. If I don't answer, just leave a message. I'll get right back to you. I might be out running or making dinner, have my phone off, something like that. You can also text that line. If you text me, make sure to tell me who you are and what class you're in. Otherwise, I'll have no idea who this person is who wants to know if there's a quiz tomorrow. So it's just better if you can identify yourself. And in fact, I'll just pause briefly to say that's true for email also. So the email name that I'm assigned through Walter State makes it very clear who you're emailing, michael.funk. But your email address does not have that same sort of clarity. It's an initial and a last name, and it's kind of hard to suss out exactly who's emailing me. So it's really best in an email if you begin it with some kind of salutation or greeting. Dear Mr. Funk. Hi, Dr. Funk. Hey, Funk. Something along those lines. And then comma, return, and then the body of your email, tell me what brilliant idea you had, or the thing you're confused about, or the thing you wanted to share. And then at the end of the email, you're going to want to include some kind of sign-off, right? Like, sincerely, Alan Iverson, or best, or regards, Tim Tebow, or something along those lines, right? You want to include at the end of your email your name. Say goodbye and tell me who I've been talking to. It's both a more professional way to conduct yourself via email, but it's also the only way that I'll know who I'm talking to. So go ahead and make sure you do that when you send emails. And for some of you, you think this is not something I need to be told, but in my experience, for many people, it's something that bears a reminder. So I'll just give the reminder now. But the long and the short of this is just, I'm super easy to get a hold of. You can call me, you can stop on my office hours, you can text me, and best, you can shoot me an email. And any of those mechanisms is really fine. I'm happy to be available, whatever way is easiest. So the course structure, again, weekly folders, weekly videos, weekly readings, and either quizzes or discussion boards, occasionally, but not typically, both. And then the course grade, how we'll determine it, the course assignments, is based on this rubric. or this series of assignments. There'll be 4 quizzes. Each quiz is worth 10% of your final grade. So the 4 quizzes will be spread out across the course of the semester. There's no final exam or no midterm. The midterm will just be the second or third quiz. You can think about one of them as a midterm if you like, but they're all weighted equally. And the final quiz will be your final exam. It won't be cumulative. Each quiz covers the section of material that came between the last quiz and the date that quiz is posted. So for each quiz, you have a small segment of the course's material, about a quarter of the material. The quizzes are true, false, and multiple choice questions. You'll be able to find on eLearn. They are timed, so the time limit is between an hour and an hour and a half, depending on the number of questions that you get. And a typical quiz has about 10 questions on it. So you've got plenty of time for each question. It's open note and open book. You're free to use whatever resources you have available while you're taking the quiz. Now, some people will hear that and think, okay, that means I don't have to study for the quiz. That is not what I'm saying. You definitely should study for your quizzes. It's just that, one, having an online platform, there's no way for me to stop people from using those things. And so I don't want to put honest people at a disadvantage by telling them don't use these, and then honest people don't. And then dishonest people, or people who are just scared or nervous, and because of that dishonest, then they end up using those things. So I just say everybody gets to use them. But the second element is really, I think of the quizzes as not just a mechanism for determining your grade, but also as a way to highlight to you the important points that we've covered over the last roughly 4 weeks. So there's a quiz just about every 4 weeks. And so as you're taking the quiz, you'll see the things that were most critical, the issues that were the important points will be the ones that come up in the quizzes. And so if you've studied your notes, you've done your reading in advance, you'll see those questions, you'll know the answers, and you might want to go to your notes, the book, to confirm those answers. But that makes the quiz a kind of a learning experience as much as it is a way to produce a grade for you. So I encourage you to study in advance of the quizzes. It will really help your quiz scores if you do that, and it makes the activity more effective in terms of learning. And that's really what we're here to do. So 4 quizzes, timed, usually in the area of 10 questions, maybe as few as 8, maybe as many as 15 at the most, but I'll give you more time if it's a longer quiz. And each assignment within a weekly folder will be due by the time the next folder is due. More about the timing of the thing as we go, but the course is roughly arranged so that each week starts on Monday, and contributions to the discussion board, quizzes for that week, videos for that week, they should be completed by the following Monday. So if school starts August 22nd and we open the week 1 folder that day, you have 1 week from August 22nd. You have until August 29th to complete the discussion board, watch the video, and do any other associated assignments. Now, in addition to the quizzes, there'll be a term paper. The term paper is broken up into 2 parts. The first part has very detailed instructions that you'll get later on. You'll choose from between 2 case studies which one you'd prefer to write on, and then I have very detailed instructions about how exactly to write that paper. It's not a paper like you've written before. I'm going to be walking you through applying moral theory in that paper. So if you follow the steps of term paper part 1, you'll come up with, I have basically a template that I want you to follow for that term paper. To sort of get you in the habit of thinking through moral problems in a rigorous analytic way. And then term paper part 2, term paper part 1, I should say, it's about a 1,500 word assignment. worth 15% of your grade, due about the middle of the course. More on that later. We'll get to the calendar when I show you the syllabus. Term paper part 2 is an extension of that first assignment into a more traditional prose style essay. And again, I'll walk you through that transition from part 1 to part 2. They're substantially different assignments, but on the same topic. Term paper part 2, also about 5 pages and worth 15% of your grade. Then you will have a journal assignment. Journal entries are only a page or 2, but you'll want to start early. You're going to need, I think I've actually changed this in the syllabus from 10 to 5. We'll check that when we get to the syllabus section. I'm fairly sure I've reduced the quantity of those, although I may not have. We'll have to check. The journal assignment, though, a journal is a simple enough activity, right? The journal assignment is that you take a question from the end of the chapter in either of the textbooks, and so you have at the back of each chapter discussion questions. Take one of those discussion questions. You get to choose which one you like from that week's reading, and you'll write a 1 to 2 page response to one of those discussion questions. Alternatively, you can make up your own question from the reading of that day. So you want to write about some issue that's not mentioned in the discussion questions, but is either in the text or was in the video. You want to write a page or 2 about your own question. That is also perfectly fine. The journals are not graded in a really hard way. I expect you to make a sincere effort, but they're not. I won't be as strict with journals as I would be with the term paper. The journals are a chance for you to engage with this material on your own, to think about it, to work through some of the ideas, and to see where you land. And so you get a page or 2 several times across the course of the semester to grapple with the material yourself. And then you'll send those in via the Dropbox. There'll be Dropboxes for both sections of the term paper and then also for the journals, listed 1 through 10, and you'll just drop a journal in each of those Dropboxes. And then finally, participation will be 10% of your grade. Participation here means half watching the videos. So I have a tracking metric so that I can tell if you have or have not watched the video and for how long. And then I also, that'll be half of your participation grade, and the other half of the participation grade will be contributions to the discussion boards. So the discussion boards, I'll put up usually 1 or 2 per week. Some weeks there won't be any. Most weeks there'll be at least 1 and sometimes 2. You'll have to initiate a discussion board post. That is, you'll have a starter. You'll start a discussion board thread at least twice. And you have to reply to somebody else's thread at least 3 times. And then you need 10 total contributions to the discussion board. So at least 2 have to be you starting, at least 3 have to be you replying, and then the other 5 you can start, you can reply, but you have to do one or the other. So 10 discussion board contributions of I'll say a substantial length, like a paragraph. Say something meaningful. And then 2 starters. 2 of those have to be starters, 3 of those have to be replies, the other 5 are dealer's choice. That's 10% of your grade for a total of 90%. And the grading rubric across Walters State is standard 10-point increments from 100% to 90% as an A, and so on. So I'll show you the syllabus to give you a sense of it, and although you've probably found it by this point where it's located. So in eLearn, you will click on your course. You'll see the welcome. You go to course information and content. And then here, you'll find your syllabus. There'll be a video here that you're watching now. So then each week has its own folder. So this week started on August 22nd and will go to August 29th. That means you should have contributed to this discussion board, Introduce Yourself, by August 29th. So that's how I'll take attendance for this first week, is have you contributed to the Introduce Yourself discussion board. So if you don't contribute to that discussion board, I will assume that you want to drop the class and you'll be purged from the roll after the first week's attendance comes out. So make sure you contribute to that Introduce Yourself discussion board this week. And then the next week, we'll talk about morality, religion, and the law. You'll see the video here, and here's a discussion board. So that week will start August 29th, and I guess that means the September 5th, I think, is the next Monday. So that'll go from August 29th till September 5th, and then consequentialism, and then utility, objections and replies, and so on. So in this first week, you'll find the syllabus. I encourage you to not just click on it and view it, but to get the arrow down and go ahead and download that syllabus. That'll be the easiest thing for you to do. And then once you've downloaded it, it'll look like this. Print this. Once you've downloaded it, save it onto your hard drive, but make sure you print yourself a copy. You don't want to have to constantly go back and forth to your computer every time you try to read your textbook. It's much more effective if you print out a copy, and for me, I hang a copy of each of my course syllabi on the wall behind my computer desk so that I know exactly where to find the course schedule for all the classes. I have to keep track of the schedule also. It's not just you. On the front page of the syllabus, you'll find all the things we've gone over already. So you'll find my name, here's my office, you'll see my office hours. This is my office line, so if I'm in the office and you call this number, I'll answer it. If not, leave a message, I'll get back to you. I may email you a response, I may call you back depending on the kind of thing that you needed to have help with. This is the cell number you can call or text me at between, say, 8 and 8. And then my preferred email address. Down here you have the textbooks. You should buy both of them, you're going to need both of them. Although if you want to start off with the Fundamentals of Ethics from the bookstore, you might pick up The Ethical Life on Amazon at a discount. That's certainly reasonable, given that you have about a month before we start reading that text. And then there's a bunch of standard boilerplate from the college. Some other teacher will go over all of that with you. There is some helpful information there on what to do if you have, if we have some kind of sort of college-wide emergency, some kind of pandemic, maybe not that helpful. If the zombie apocalypse happens, that is going to cause disruptions in our course schedule. If you need some sort of disability services or help from a reading lab or a math lab, those are all contact information for those folks is all listed in the syllabus. And then at the bottom, at the very end of the syllabus, is where I put the most crucial information. So for me, I flip to this back page when I pin the syllabus up against or up to the wall, so that this is what I see. And then I just write in here in this blank space on the area next to grading. I write there what the name of the class is, so that I can keep track more easily. And here you'll find the reading schedule for the class. This is really the meat of the class. The class introduction, discussion of the syllabus is today. Next week will be morality and ethics. You are going to read FE. That is the fundamentals of ethics. You'll read the introduction. And then the week after that, we'll talk about morality and religion. You're going to read, again, FE, the fundamentals of ethics, chapter 5. We'll do psychological egoism after that. So August 31st, these two sections. So for next week, fundamentals of ethics, the introduction, and chapter 5. The week following that, September 7th, we'll do psychological egoism and ethical egoism, chapters 7 and 8. The week following that, utilitarianism, chapters 9 and 10. The week following that, we will talk about deontology, that is fairness, justice, respect, and autonomy, chapters 11 and 12. And that week, you will also have a quiz. So that week I will post quiz number 1, and it'll be due on September 21st. So in bold here, you'll have due dates for the quizzes. Right? Quiz number 1 is due on September 21st. That quiz will cover everything from September 14th through August 31st. So chapters 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10 will be covered on that first quiz, which is due on September 21st. Then the second quiz will cover sections 11, 12, 14, and 15, and will be due October 5th. After that, I will assign the first part of the term paper. So you'll get the first section from August 24th all the way down to September 28th. You'll have content about normative ethics, that is moral theory. More about exactly what normative ethics is in next week's video and what moral theory looks like. We'll talk about all of that in next week's video. For now, though, know that this first month is dedicated to moral theory. We'll have 2 quizzes on moral theory, and then after that section, I'll assign you the first part of the term paper, which will help you to start to work with, apply, and see the differences in types of moral theory. Following that section, we'll get into October. And once we're in October, we're going to have more practical topics. We'll talk about hunger and poverty this first substantive week in October, and then the following week, euthanasia, and October 19th, that first part of the term paper will be due. Right, so again, these are due dates in bold. Then the moral status of animals, and then the next week, affirmative action. Quiz 3 will be due that week. Right, so on November 2nd, quiz 3 will be due. And that quiz will cover everything from chapters 17, 20, 21, 22, 23, 26, and 27. Right, so the preceding several weeks. And then the final section of the class for that fourth quiz will cover affirmative action, punishment, terrorism, and torture. And then the last week, I'll leave you to finish up your final term paper, which is going to be due on November 30th, and we will have the fourth quiz, final quiz, during exam week. So that'll be due. I think this class is scheduled for December 7th on exam week. And again, that'll just be your fourth quiz. So that's the general outline of the course, how it's going to be set up, what the weekly activity is going to be like. And yeah, we will have those 10 journals. If I changed it down to 5 for a different class that's writing an additional long paper. So you'll have 10 of those journal entries. There will be more questions about journal entries. There always are. And so I'll just clarify now. The journals, short 1 to 2 page essays. Easiest thing you could do is to just write on one of the discussion questions at the end of a chapter. Right? So each chapter has at its end discussion questions. You pick one. Do not write on 3 or 4 of them. Write on one discussion question, 1 to 2 pages. Typed, double-spaced, 12-point font, standard margins, right? Don't get cute. And also don't write in 8-point font, single-spaced. So standard formatting, please. You're going to write 10 of those. Somebody's going to ask, when are those due? That's a good question. Those are due by the time of the final paper, right? So your journals need to be to me by the time you turn in the second part of the term paper. So by November 30th, when term paper part 2 is due, your journals are also due to me. Now what that means is you can, if you choose, wait to turn in 10 journal assignments to me on November 30th. Don't do that. For your mental health and for my mental health, that is not a wise choice. So if I get 10 pages of journals from everybody at the same time I'm getting 5-page essays from everybody, that means I've got 15 pages per person to read, and that puts me in a surly mood while I'm grading. You don't want me to be in a surly mood while I'm grading. You want me to be happy while I'm grading. So help me help you. Distribute those journals across the course of the semester. What you should do is pick some weeks where you know you're going to write a journal entry. So you know there's going to be a quiz on September 14th. I'll release a quiz that week, and that quiz is going to be due on the 21st. So maybe you say, okay, I'm not going to write a journal this week because that's the week I have the quiz and I want to study for the quiz. So maybe what I'll do is I will write a journal on September 14th. Or rather, I'll write, sorry, having this doubled up with the weeks is confusing to me a little bit. It may be for you as well. Maybe next semester I'll do it differently. Here's as an aside, if you find something in this class very helpful, send me an email and let me know so I keep it. If you find something in this class distracting, send me an email, let me know, and I can help to streamline the class for the next section. That'd be helpful. I'm always trying to improve the class, stuff I really enjoy, and I want to make it better. So help me out with that. But you might say, okay, well, I know that this week of September 7th, that week I won't have a quiz. Let me get my first journal done by that week. I'll write on one of the discussion questions from chapters 7 or 8, and I'll put that in the Dropbox, and that'll give me a sense of what grading for the journals looks like, what the expectations are like, and it'll just get one of these things out of the way. So that's a strategy I encourage you to employ. That way I can do the grading across the semester, you can do the writing across the semester, and neither of us is freaking out at the end of the semester when we have you have 15 pages to write, 15 pages to read and grade. It's better if you distribute those across the semester. But I understand lives get hectic and messy, and so I'm leaving that journal assignment up to you, especially because there are some of you who what you're really going to want to write about is you're going to want to write on hunger and poverty, and then you're going to want to write on euthanasia, and then you're going to want to write another one on animals, another one on affirmative action, another one on punishment, another on terrorism, and then one on torture. Right? So it could be that you want to write about mostly the practical stuff. And if that's true for you, then you might backload the writing of these assignments. Just know that if you do that, it's going to make things harder for you when work starts to become due in all your other classes too. So you've got the opportunity to adjust that as you choose. And in fact, because the course assignments are basically all laid out already, you could work ahead a little bit if you wanted to, although I don't want you to work too far ahead too quickly. I've put an opening date on the term papers so that everybody has the same amount of time with those, just as a matter of fairness. And the quizzes likewise, those have specific due dates. They have to be in by a certain time. Let's see. Other questions or policies? Okay, the final thing that I'd like to do is I will, before I send you off to introduce yourself in the Introduce Yourself discussion board in eLearn. Right, so remember, in eLearn there's this introduction discussion board. And it looks like some of you have already found it. Hi, Kaylee. There are many of you probably have not yet started here. I'll introduce myself, and I'll do it in a video. My name is Michael Funk. I've been teaching philosophy since 2004. So I started teaching as a grad student in 2004. I had my first class to myself in 2004. And it's what I've always wanted to do. So I'm one of those strange people that kind of always knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. When I was, I guess, 13 or 14, I really didn't like Sunday school, and so I used to try to get out of Sunday school. I didn't like the kids. It was sort of cliquey and catty, and it just didn't suit me. So in order to get out of that, I would go with my mother after church, and we'd do these long, I don't know, breakfast, lunch, brunch things, where we'd talk for like several hours about whether or not God existed, what God was like, what evil was like, how we knew what God wanted from us. These kind of like what our purpose here was, that kind of question. These sort of big philosophical questions, and it got me really interested in philosophy. And then when I was 17, the people at my church got sort of tired of all the questions. They're like, okay, enough of the questions. You've got a lot of questions. We're going to fix this. Instead of us answering your questions, the third grade Sunday school class needs a teacher. We're going to have you teach that class. And so I taught the class, and I really enjoyed it. It was a super fun experience for me. And I realized then that what I really wanted to do was study philosophy and teach. And then I found out that there's this job, you can teach philosophy. And so when I went to the University of Florida, I grew up in Gainesville, Florida, and so I went to my hometown school, UF. Go Gators. And when I went there, I was 18. I went in as a philosophy major. I knew what I wanted to do, and I haven't looked back. So I spent my undergrad at the University of Florida, graduated from there, and moved up to Montana, Missoula, Montana. It's the Rocky Mountain section of Montana, and did a master's degree in philosophy there. And then my wife and I moved back to South Florida, where she got into law school and I got into a PhD program in the kind of same area. And she did her degree and I did my PhD there. And I worked for a while at St. Pete College and at University of South Florida, a little bit in the Honors College, a little bit in the College of Business Administration, a little bit of time on the St. Pete campus, and then Hillsborough Community College for a while, before finally last year landing here in Morristown. And so we spent last year here, and so I'm starting my second year here at Walters State, and really enjoying it so far. I have had a lot of really nice experiences, met some really warm and welcoming people, and I've met some really bright and engaging students. So that's kind of more or less how I end up in this spot, in a more personal way. I've got 2 kids, 8 and 6. I juggle. I play guitar. I ran a marathon in 2014. Not a good time, about 10-minute miles, so right about 4 hours, which wasn't terrible either. I felt a little slow that day. Could have done better, but it was a good experience, and I still like to run. If you're around Morristown, you might see me running, usually around dusk, out on 160, or if you see some crazy guy running down Morris Boulevard, or rather Andrew Johnson, at like midnight, that's probably me. I do a lot of sort of late night runs. Other than that, well, I guess there's more to say, but that's enough for now. You may get some more personality from me as the course proceeds. And if you have a chance and you'd like to stop by my office, I would love to meet you. Otherwise, the homework for now is to go ahead and introduce yourself in this introduction thread, and make sure to read for next week the introduction. You want to read the introduction in the Fundamentals of Ethics and Chapter 5 for next week. And there'll be another video and another discussion board in the next week's module. If you ever have any questions, concerns about anything, stop by my office, give me a phone call, text me, send me an email. I'm super available, and I really do love this stuff, so I'm happy to talk about it as much as you'd like. I'll sign off there, and I hope we have a great semester. I will talk to you all later.